You are not just looking at reality, you are participating in its assembly. In a lab, a photon's path is a haze of possibilities until a detector clicks. In life, your attention is the detector. The moment you truly look, without flinching, without splitting your gaze between past regrets and future fears, probabilities narrow, coherence rises, and the world in front of you starts to organize around the pattern of your focus. Observation is not a passive flashlight. It is a tuning fork. Strike it with intention, and the field around you begins to hum in key. Imagine reality as a vast, unfinished score written in pencil. Each note exists in faint outline, one of many ways the melody could go. When you attend to something with feeling, you ink the staff. Physiologically, attention stabilizes neural firing. Circuits that fire together wire together, sculpting your brain's microarchitecture into a template for future perception. Psychologically, salience filters the chaos. You notice more opportunities that fit your inner hypothesis and ignore noise that doesn't. Energetically, call it coherence, call it alignment. The scattered impulses of a distracted mind condense into a single carrier wave. Where a mind is coherent, behavior becomes precise. Where behavior is precise, feedback from the world is swift. Where feedback is swift, the brain updates faster. And where the brain updates faster, the loop between inner state and outer result tightens until it feels like causation. Think of the double-slit experiment as a parable. Waves when unobserved, particles when measured. Your life carries a similar ambiguity. When you are diffuse, you move as a wave, everywhere and nowhere, tasting possibilities but tasting nothing fully. When you commit, you measure a path. Commitment collapses the maybes into a yes. The universe is not offended by your decisiveness. It has been waiting for it. What shows up in your calendar, your inbox, your conversations, begins to crystallize around the vector you declared with your gaze and your state. Observation is not merely seeing with the eyes. It is a full-body rendezvous with the present. The body keeps time. The breath provides the metronome. The heart supplies voltage. The brain shapes the waveform. When these systems synchronize, you enter a regime where small inputs produce large outputs. A single email sent from resentment carries static. The same email sent from clarity carries signal. The words are identical, but the sender's coherence changes the receiver's perception, tone, and response. This is not mysticism, it is resonance. Coherent systems couple more efficiently than incoherent ones. Manifestation, stripped of slogans, is the art of stabilizing a hypothesis long enough for reality to test and then reinforce it. First comes state. You prime your nervous system to safety and possibility, lowering threat chemistry that narrows the future to the next 5 minutes. Then comes image. You sculpt a sensory-rich representation of the desired outcome until the brain maps it as familiar rather than foreign. Then comes action, repeated micro-behaviors that align with that representation. None of this violates physics. It leverages prediction. The brain is a prediction engine. It projects a model forward and seeks error signals to improve the fit. When your model is emotionally charged and consistently rehearsed, your perception extracts more data that matches it. Your choices shift, and like a lens ground to a new curvature, the world looks different and responds differently. Picture your attention as a lens with adjustable aperture. Too wide, and everything is washed in light. Too narrow, and you star the sensor. The craft is dynamic focus, widen to sense the field of options, narrow to act. In the widening phase, you become the quiet observer, letting possibilities interfere and form a living wave pattern in the mind's eye. In the narrowing phase, you become the creator, collapsing that wave into the next precise move. A phone call, a draft, a rehearsal, a boundary. Over time, discrete acts arranged in a rhythm become a standing wave, the new normal. There's a reason gratitude is potent in this process. Gratitude is the emotional signature of already received. When you feel it before you have the evidence, you're training your predictive machinery to expect the outcome and to treat steps toward it as congruent rather than risky. The body relaxes, the prefrontal cortex gains bandwidth. The salience network highlights relevant cues. You start noticing doors that were always there, but unlit. This is selection, not sorcery. The hallway of reality contains many doors, and gratitude turns on the right lights. Skepticism has a role. It prevents you from drifting in a fantasy untethered to feedback. But productive skepticism is an instrument check, not a self-sabotage. Ask, is my state coherent, my image specific, my action consistent, my feedback loop honest? If yes, keep watching with care. If no, adjust the gain, slow the breath, rewrite the script as a verb, not a noun, make the steps smaller and the repetition higher. Kritiken ist iterative measurement. Each cycle, you observe more cleanly and create more cleanly. Think of identity as the most persistent observation of all, the story you keep watching about yourself. If the observer is convinced, I am scattered, the creator receives that blueprint and builds a life to match. Open tabs, frayed threads, half-finished arcs. If the observer updates to, I am the kind of person who completes, the creator reorganizes time, trims commitments, and the environment begins mirroring completion back. Closed loops, answer messages, shipments delivered. Identity is the measurement device that never turns off. Change the instrument, the readings change. There will be turbulence. Any system moving from disorder to order must release trapped energy. Old habits unspool. Stale alliances dissolve. Conflicting probabilities interfere and cancel. Treat this not as a cosmic no, but as interference fringes on the way to resolution. Hold the state. Keep observing the signal within the noise. In the microscope, clarity emerges not from staring harder, but from adjusting focus in tiny turns while maintaining a steady hand. At scale, this practice becomes simple. You wake and set state before the world sets it for you. You rehearse the scene you are committed to, not as a desperate plea, but as a calm specification. You step into the day and let the world respond. You record the feedback without drama and refine the model. You go to sleep letting gratitude compress the learning into memory. Observer and creator complete the circuit twice a day, every day, until the distinction between them blurs and life begins to feel less like something happening to you and more like something speaking through you. And then there is the quiet surprise. The more precisely you observe, the less you need to force. The field remembers your coherence. People arrive with the correct keys. Emails land in the window of readiness. Problems appear as puzzles with visible edges. The quantum poet might say the universe enjoys being seen well. The engineer might say high-fidelity sensing drives high-fidelity control. Both are pointing to the same law, Quality of observation determines quality of creation. Hold your gaze. Tune your state. Let the wave collapse into the next clean step, and then the next, until the outline becomes ink and you are living inside the drawing you once only admired. Creation gains reliability when you separate event from meaning in real time. The nervous system is a prediction machine layered over a reflex factory. When something unexpected happens, the body surges first, the story follows. If you attach an old meaning to a new event, you reinstall yesterday's code. Observation interrupts this reflex. A breath held for 4 counts and released for 6 raises vagal tone, steadies the heart's variability, and opens the gate for the prefrontal cortex to evaluate rather than react. In that extra half second, you can choose a meaning that serves the trajectory you are building. The same email, the same bill, the same comment, observed cleanly, becomes fuel rather than friction. Attention has anatomy. The reticular activating system biases what reaches awareness. The thalamus routes the traffic, and cortical maps decide what matters next. You don't control the world, but you can train the filter. Rehearsed intention is a white list. Goals translated into sensory detail and felt emotion recruit the filter to flag matching signals. Suddenly, a throwaway line in a conversation becomes a lead. A paragraph buried in a book becomes a blueprint. A street you've walked 100 times presents a door you never noticed. This is not luck, it is trained salience. The observer writes the query. The creator receives the search results. Coherence is measurable when the heart and breath fall into a smooth sinus rhythm. When cortical rhythms reduce noisy crosstalk and climb into brief gamma synchrony, perception sharpens and behavior costs less energy. You can feel the difference. Tasks that used to take willpower begin to glide because the engine is burning clean. Practices that create this state, slow nasal breathing, gratitude and appreciation, deliberate attention switching, single task sprints, are not rituals for the universe. They are maintenance for the instrument that reads the universe. Tune the instrument, and the score clarifies. Identity is a living prior, constantly updated by evidence you allow yourself to count. If you never celebrate completion, your brain will not tag, "I finish things" as true, no matter how many tasks you actually close. Observation here is bookkeeping. Record micro wins with the same fidelity as you record failures, and the posterior belief about who you are will drift toward competence. As the belief shifts, effortful behaviors become probable behaviors, then default behaviors. The creator benefits from this momentum. The next bold request, the next boundary, the next practice session arrives with lower internal friction. Expect resistance as a diagnostic, not a verdict. Systems resist reorganization because old couplings conserved energy, even if they also conserved pain. When you raise the order of your inner state, the environment sometimes lags. Some relationships will desynchronize. Some routines will detach. Observe without drama. A pilot doesn't argue with turbulence. They correct heading, trim, and altitude in small increments while keeping the destination in view. Your correction loop is the same. State, image, action, feedback. Repeat until the pattern holds. Precision matters more than passion. Passion without specification floods the sensor. Specification without feeling starves motivation. Fuse them. State sets the voltage. Image sets the circuit. Action closes it. Make the image so concrete that you can point to disconfirming or confirming evidence each day. Did you send the email? Did you train for 20 minutes? Did you ask for the meeting? If not, adjust scope until yes becomes inevitable. Small certain moves compound faster than grand occasional gestures. The quantum tale you've heard becomes a practical ethic. Collapse the wave into the next smallest observable success. Language is an actuator. Words route energy through your nervous system and the systems around you. When your self-talk is written in imperatives aimed at problems, your attention orbits the problem. Rewrite in declaratives aimed at identity and process. I write for 20 minutes at 8 o'clock. I train at 17:30. I send one bold request before noon. Each sentence is a measurement that can be verified today. Each verification thickens the reality you're building. The field, social, professional, biological, responds to consistent signals the way matter responds to a standing wave. Nodes form, structure emerges, and options stabilize. Silence is not empty. It is a high-resolution mode of observation. In silence, the noise floor drops and subtle signals become audible. The body's microtensions, the mind's default narratives, the fine grain of desire beneath borrowed goals. A few minutes of true stillness each morning is cheaper and more effective than hours of forced action under static. From that stillness, choose one move that would make every other move easier or irrelevant. Do that, then pause again. This cadence, observe, select, act, integrate, becomes a creative metronome that keeps you from flooding your day with unmeasured effort. Eventually, you discover the simplest proof that the observer and the creator are the same agency. When you watch yourself well, you don't need to control others. Influence replaces force because your state, your clarity, and your reliability broadcast a clean carrier wave. People attune to it, not because you demand it, but because coherence feels like relief. Projects accelerate around you, not because the universe bent its rules, but because you bent your attention into alignment with them. The miracle, when it arrives, looks ordinary. The right message answered, the right door opened, the right idea matured at the right hour. Call it quantum if you like. Call it skilled observation if you prefer. Either way, keep looking like a creator, calm, precise, grateful, and watch how the world keeps changing where your gaze lands. Mastery begins when you realize attention is not a spotlight you wave around the room. It's a lathe that shapes the room. Wherever you rest it, grooves form. The brain learns those grooves as preferred paths. The endocrine system learns them as default chemistries, and your calendar learns them as recurring patterns of action. The observer effect in a lab is a measurement device fixing a value out of a cloud of possibilities. In a life, your steady state fixes direction out of a cloud of temptations. Random inputs still arrive, but they shear off the surface you've already turned smooth. Desire refines into design only when you convert pictures into procedures. If you can't count it, you can't collapse it. Translate the vision into behaviors so small they survive bad weather. 2 minutes of breath before screens. 1 page drafted before messages. 1 request sent before lunch. Each act is a measurement on your future, an anchoring of a fuzzy amplitude to a clean datum. You're not waiting for proof. You are manufacturing it one controlled experiment at a time. Your nervous system is an antenna with adjustable impedance. Fear and hurry thicken the circuit with noise. Curiosity and trust thin it. When impedance is matched, signal passes with minimal reflection. Conversations click, timing aligns. Effort feels proportional to result. You don't command this state with force, you tune into it. Nasal breathing lowers the noise floor. Posture opens the chassis. Language sets the modulation, and ethics, doing what you said you would do, stabilizes the carrier. People call this luck. Engineers call it low-loss coupling. Choice is a lens that bends probability. Say yes to everything and you blur the image. Say no to everything and the sensor goes dark. The art is focal length management. For exploration, zoom out and let competing options interfere into a pattern you can study. For execution, zoom in until only one path remains in focus and step where the pixels are sharp. This alternation, diverge, converge, prevents both paralysis and waste. The universe rewards rhythm. Biology does too. Self-image is your most powerful measurement device because it samples continuously. I'm the kind of person who is code that compiles into posture, tone, and micro choices without supervision. If that code is stale, you will keep collapsing outcomes that match yesterday's self. Update it with evidence, not affirmations. Keep a ledger of aligned actions, however small, and read it nightly. The brain's consolidators will tag the story true, and tomorrow's behavior will arrive pre-biased toward continuation. Momentum is identity made visible. Environment is an amplifier. Arrange your space so it measures you into your intention. Put instruments within reach and distractions out of line of sight. Preload your morning with the first cue of the day's design. Shoes by the door, document open to the exact paragraph, instrument tuned and waiting. A messy setup demands extra willpower to overcome static. A prepared setup collapses friction before it rises. In physics, we call this reducing activation energy. In practice, it feels like inevitability. Feedback is sacred because it is reality answering your observation. Treat it like telemetry, not verdict. If the signal deviates from the plan, don't rewrite the dream. Rewrite the control law. Change the sampling rate, lower the step size, add a safeguard, lengthen the rehearsal. The creator who learns fastest is the one who observes cleanly under discomfort. When you stop taking measurements personally, you can improve personally. Silence trains resolution. Sit long enough to hear the difference between craving and calling. Craving is loud and narrow. It wants relief. Calling is quiet and wide. It wants expression. Build from calling, and your discipline costs less because the work returns energy as you do it. Build from craving, and your discipline burns hot because the work keeps asking for more than it gives back. The observer can tell which is which. The creator is the one who acts on that knowledge. Gratitude, properly used, is a calibration tool. Aim it not at fantasy, but at the present evidence of alignment, at the smallest match between your inner specification and the world's response. Gratitude for micro-confirmations increases the gain on the relevant channel. Your system learns what to notice, what to repeat, what to ignore. Soon coincidences cluster where you've been measuring diligently. Probability has not been cheated. Attention has been trained. There is a moment, if you persist, when effort changes flavor. You still work, but the work feels like riding the fall line rather than climbing the slope. That is the signature of a well-tuned loop. State sets clarity, clarity sets selection. Selection sets action. Action returns data. Data refines state. Round and round until the flywheel hums. From the outside, it looks mystical. From the inside, it feels mechanical in the best way. clean engagement, low chatter, high trust. Hold this simple contract with yourself. I will observe like a scientist and create like an artist. The scientist in you asks better questions, runs smaller experiments, and keeps immaculate notes. The artist in you commits to a line on the canvas and makes it beautiful with what's at hand. Between them, you stop waiting for permission. You become the measurement that makes meaning, the gaze that settles the pattern, the steady hand that turns the outline into form. Keep going. The field keeps answering the one who looks with precision and moves with grace. Creation becomes precise when you treat attention like a laboratory instrument and a musical ear at once. Instruments need calibration. Ears need training. Begin each day by zeroing the device. A minute of stillness to lower internal noise, a single clear sentence of intent, one vivid scene rehearsed with sensory detail. You are not asking reality to bend. You are specifying the experiment you will run. The brain's predictive machinery, cortex, thalamus, cerebellum, prefers well-posed problems. Give it a clean prior, and it will harvest cleaner error signals from the world. Those error signals, tiny mismatches between expectation and outcome, are the gold dust of change. They drive dopamine's teaching pulses, update synapses, and reshape habits. The observer notices them without vanity. The creator edits the next move in response. Think of perception as a Bayesian loop. You carry a model of who I am and what works here, and you check incoming data against it. If the model dominates too strongly, you ignore evidence. If the data dominate too strongly, you drown in novelty. Manifestation is not magical override, it is model stewardship. You raise the precision of the signals that matter, your values, your aim, your next action, and lower the precision of noise, old fear, borrowed urgency, ambient outrage. Breathing practices, posture, gaze stability, and deliberate language all modulate this precision weighting. Every time you choose where to place high confidence and where to let go, you bend the stream of updates toward the future you are building. Gaze is not trivial. Where the eyes settle, neural resources follow. Saccades sketch your priorities across the scene. Sustained fixation invites detail to load. Use this deliberately. Scan wide to sense context, then park your gaze on the one cue that advances the intention. Do this while writing, while talking, while planning. You'll feel a subtle drop in mental scatter as oculomotor discipline recruits prefrontal control. The nervous system reads your eyes as a vote. This matters that can wait. Your collaborations, your tools, your calendar soon reflect that vote. Embodiment is the amplifier that turns quiet intention into audible action. A coherent inner story riding in a disorganized body emits a noisy signal. Align posture with purpose, crown tall, ribs soft, jaw loose, breath low, and the signal to noise ratio climbs. Heart rate variability becomes smoother, interoception becomes clearer, and decisions cost fewer jowls. Athletes call this economy. Creators can have it too. When economy rises, consistency ceases to feel like willpower and begins to feel like gravity. Expectation effects are not superstition. They are prediction in action. Placebo is the nervous system cashing a check your belief wrote. Nocebo is your vigilance taxing your own future. Neither is a license to deny facts. It is a reminder that your state biases how facts land. Approach the same meeting from threat physiology and you detect insult. Approach from safety physiology, and you detect nuance. One state triggers a protective script. The other unlocks problem solving. Observation becomes a gatekeeper. What story do I let this event complete? Which network, defense or design, do I recruit? Reduce your unit of creation until it's debuggable. Big dreams that cannot be tested today become myths that cannot teach you. Choose a granularity that yields daily, falsifiable questions. Did I make one offer? Did I rehearse 10 minutes? Did I close one loop? Each yes or no is a measurement. Stack a week of such measurements and you own a data set. Read it like an engineer. What is the loop stall? State, image, action, or feedback? Adjust the failing stage and run the next iteration. Progress becomes a controlled drift toward the target, not a hope for a leap. Language is code that runs on wet hardware. Avoid vague nouns that can't be verified. Prefer verbs anchored to time and place. Swap success for send, health for cook and train, connection for invite and show up. When a sentence names an act, the body can comply. When it names an abstraction, the body guesses and often chooses the cheapest substitute. Say less and mean more. Short commands reduce cognitive load and survive stress. Design frictions out of your future. Engineering calls this lowering activation energy. Psychology calls it choice architecture. Lay out tools the night before. Reduce permissions needed to start. Automate the first cue. You're not making yourself stronger by wrestling with doors. You're making the corridor straighter. The field responds to steadiness more than intensity. A small, reliable current carves canyons that floods never do. Treat setbacks as spectral measurements rather than verdicts. A failed pitch reveals where your message loses amplitude. A missed workout reveals where your routine lacks a stable attractor. Instead of amplifying shame, amplify information. What was the earliest detectable deviation? Insert a tiny guardrail there, a calendar alert, a visible cue, a 5-minute pre-flight. A system that improves where it first wobbles becomes a system that rarely falls. Curate inputs as if your attention were a precious reagent. What you scroll, who you follow, the rooms you enter, all are chemicals in your mental beaker. If the mixture foams with cynicism and outrage, don't be shocked when your experiments keep exploding. Choose inputs that stabilize curiosity and competence. This is not retreat. It is environmental control. Creation is sensitive to initial conditions. Make yours friendly. Practice deliberate recovery. Output without periodic downregulation turns signal into static. Micro pauses during the day, 60 seconds of eyes on horizon, a few slow exhales, reset brainstem arousal. Evening rituals, light dimming, screens distant, gratitude for one proof of alignment. Close loops so consolidation can do its work. Sleep is when the observer hands the logbook to the creator's maintenance crew. Let them file, prune, and strengthen the connections that tomorrow will rely on. Finally, protect the sanctity of the first and last hour. In the morning, install state before contact. Breathe, specify, act once. In the evening, integrate before sleep. Review, appreciate, release. These bookends keep the narrative coherent while the middle churns with contingency. Over weeks, you will feel the underlying bass line grow steady. Fewer spikes of doubt, more returns to center, more days that land where you aimed them. The equation does not change. Quality of observation determines quality of creation. Watch cleanly, specify precisely, act small and soon, read the result without drama, and repeat with warmth. The field whispers to those who listen well and favors those who follow through. Keep your gaze honest and your hand gentle on the dial. The wave will keep collapsing into form where you look with love and move with rigor. There's a subtle hinge between seeing and shaping, commitment. Until you commit, your attention samples possibilities like a sensor sweeping a horizon. Once you commit, the sensor becomes a beacon. The signal you emit, your way of saying, "This is where I live now," starts organizing traffic. Opportunities that once slid past begin to break near your lane. People with compatible vectors notice you earlier because consistency increases your radar cross-section. To the nervous system, commitment lowers entropy. To the world, it reads as reliability. Reliability is attractive to every complex system, teams, markets, relationships, because it reduces the cost of prediction. Treat your inner state like a control room staffed by 3 specialists. One monitors energy, breath, posture, heart rhythm. One monitors clarity, language, visualizations, priorities. One monitors integrity, promises made, promises kept, repairs executed when you miss. If any one of the 3 goes offline, your signal fuzzes. When all 3 are online, you experience a low drag mode. The same actions you struggled to perform now feel natural because the system no longer routes around conflict. Think of desire as a vector in a field of constraints. Some constraints are hard. Physics, time, other people's choices. Many are soft. Habits, interpretations, untested assumptions. Observation allows you to factor the vector into components. You can't remove gravity, but you can change slope. You can't add hours, but you can reassign prime hours to prime work. You can't force consent, but you can earn trust by shipping value on schedule. Each adjustment is small, but vectors add. Before long, the resultant points where you aimed. Your brain's reward system is a tutor, not a tyrant. It is exquisitely sensitive to progress signals and meaning. If you starve it of near-term evidence, it will push you back toward easy loops with immediate payoff. Feed it instead with visible micro-wins linked to a narrative that matters. 1 page equals 1 brick in the studio I'm building. 1 outreach equals 1 new synapse in my network's brain. When reward and meaning co-fire, persistence stops feeling like defiance and starts feeling like appetite. Observation refines taste. The more precisely you watch your process, the better you become at distinguishing cheap intensity from durable power. Cheap intensity is loud, spike-shaped, and leaves residue, drama, exhaustion, apologizing. Durable power is quiet, wave-shaped, and leaves structure, systems, skills, relationships. As taste matures, you will naturally choose the move that builds scaffolding over the move that burns fuel. That is the creator's palette. Fewer fireworks, more architecture. Your environment can be tuned to echo the future you're rehearsing. Choose objects that act as triggers. A timer that sits where procrastination usually wins. A chair that means writing and nothing else. A playlist whose first bars drop you in a flow because you always pair them with the same first step. This is classical conditioning, yes, but also kindness. You're building rails so the train doesn't need heroic steering every morning. Practice clean starts. A clean start is a state reset followed by 1 small correct action. It's how you prevent a wobble from becoming a spiral. You missed the gym? Breathe for 60 seconds. Drink water. Do 5 squats. Schedule tomorrow's session. You snapped in a meeting? Breathe. Apologize once. Restate intent. Propose a next step. Clean starts maintain coherence by closing micro loops quickly. Unclosed loops multiply noise. Closed loops return power. Interpersonal observation is its own art. When you hold a coherent state, you become excellent at reading phase. You can feel when someone is in threat physiology and adjust your delivery. Fewer abstractions, more concrete steps. Fewer challenges, more shared ground. You can sense when a door is ajar and ask the question that lets trust flow through. This is not manipulation. It's impedance matching between nervous systems, so collaboration loses less energy to reflection and heat. Let the body teach the mind about certainty. Athletes know that posture precedes performance. If your stance is off, your intention never arrives cleanly at the ground. Stand how your future stands. Breathe how your future breathes. Move at the cadence your future keeps. The brain is watching, and it updates its model faster from acted evidence than from argued affirmations. You're giving it training data from the world you claim to prefer. Guard your vocabulary around time. I don't have time is a vague cosmology that makes you small inside an infinite universe. Replace it with a measurement. I allocated my prime hour elsewhere. I will allocate 20 minutes at 1900 hours. This does not earn tomorrow's attention. Time is not a tyrant. It is a budget. Observers who count honestly become creators who invest wisely. When fear rises, zoom the lens to the next visible tile. Fear hates specificity because specificity invites action, and action triggers feedback that shrinks unknowns. One email, one paragraph, one phone call, one page of notes. Each is a stitch that holds the fabric while you work on the seam. Momentum is stitched, not summoned. Release the superstition that you must suffer to deserve. Systems do not reward pain. They reward information and reliability. If you can extract sharper information with less pain, that is not cheating. That is mastery. If you can be reliable without self-punishment, that is not softness. That is sustainability. The universe has no scoreboard for martyrdom. It does, however, mirror clean inputs with clean outputs over time. Your evening is a forge. Before sleep, gather 3 forms of, or one fact you learned, one move that worked, one moment that needs repair. Turn them in your hands until you can feel their weight. Decide the smallest change you will test tomorrow. Thank the day for its data. Gratitude is not theatrics. It's the chemical signal that tells the brain to consolidate gains rather than ruminate losses. And remember the simplest physics of all. Objects continue in motion unless acted upon by a larger force. Become the larger force in your own life, not with violence, but with steady, directional observation. Each morning you set initial conditions. Each action is a nudge that respects the laws of the system and still bends its path. The longer you keep the vector clean, the more inevitable your destination feels. Not because fate conspired, but because you did, day after day, gaze after gaze, turning possibility into pattern and pattern into form. The quickest way to raise the fidelity of creation is to clean up the questions you ask while observing. Sloppy questions. Why am I like this? What's wrong with them? Pull noise into the channel and recruit old defensive models. Precise questions. What is the smallest true next step? What variable can I change in the next 10 minutes? Increase signal, and summon the circuitry for planning and agency. The brain routes resources toward whatever you frame as relevant. Make relevance small, concrete, and time-bound. A clear question is a lens that tightens the blur of possibility into a workable edge. Your future is sensitive to initial conditions, and the first 5 minutes of any task are the initial condition. Enter them like a scientist prepping a measurement. Set the temperature, breath, stabilize the mount, posture, quiet the room, notifications, and test the instrument. One deliberate sentence or one slow scale on an instrument. Crossing that micro-threshold flips state faster than arguing yourself into motivation. Once inside the task, keep your sampling interval short. Measure progress every few minutes, not by vague mood. Frequent, gentle measurements allow rapid course correction without drama. Train your nervous system to associate effort with restoration, not depletion. Pair focused work with micro-rewards that are sensory and simple. A step outside for horizon gazing, a sip of water with a longer exhale, a single musical phrase that bookmarks completion. You're teaching dopamine to tag the process as meaningful, not only the finish line. When meaning adheres to the process, persistence becomes self-propelling. The loop closes with less friction because each lap returns a little energy. When doubt spikes, don't debate the storyline. Change the frame rate. Doubt is often a slow-motion replay of imagined failures. Speed the loop by moving your body at a controlled tempo. 10 brisk steps, 10 slow breaths, 1 crisp message sent. Action compresses rumination. Compressed rumination loses detail and power. Now, take a reading. What single piece of information did that action yield? Use it. The creator who metabolizes information faster than fear rises becomes functionally fearless. Not because fear vanished, but because it never gets to monopolize the clock. Treat your calendar as a lattice for crystallization. Blocks are not cages. They're seed points where order forms. Label them by mode rather than only by task. Explore, decide, build, recover. Mode labels prime the right networks before content appears. Exploration invites divergent attention and playful tests. Decision invites convergence and pruning. Building invites repetition and rhythm. Recovery invites integration and softness. Cycling modes deliberately prevents cognitive smear. When every hour feels the same, none of them produce clean measurements. Refine the craft of asking reality for help. Help is pattern matching at scale. The people you meet, the paragraphs you stumble upon, the anomalies that tug your sleeve. Specify what you are available to notice. A mentor with X trait. An example of Y solution. A phrase that unlocks the idea. Keep that specification alive in a pocket note. Read it once in the morning, once at noon, once in the evening. You're not invoking luck. You're running a distributed query across your day. The returns will look like coincidence. They are the fruits of trained salience. Let your ethics be part of your physics. Systems entrain to trustworthy signals. When you say you will, and then you do, you reduce prediction error in your network. Colleagues allocate more autonomy your way. Friends volunteer information sooner. Opportunities approach with less guarding. Reliability shortens the time constant of collaboration. Results arrive with fewer handoffs and less loss. Integrity, then, is not merely moral. It's an efficiency upgrade for creation. Curiosity is how the observer stays young enough to see new data. Guard it the way athletes guard joints. Swap contempt for questions. Replace certainty theater with hypotheses. Practice being surprised on purpose. Set tiny experiments in domains where you've grown cynical. Ask one more question in conversations that feel stale. Read one page outside your pattern. Curiosity lowers defensive gain and raises learning rate. A creator with high learning rate outruns most constraints simply by arriving at better models sooner. Negotiate with the part of you that hoards energy for imagined catastrophes. Give it scheduled drills so it trusts you. 10 minutes weekly to review worst-case logistics. 10 minutes to refresh backups, contacts, key documents. When the sentinel in you sees that the adult in you honors risk sanely, it stops hijacking attention with phantom alarms. Freed capacity returns to design. Safety, when deliberately installed, is not a cage. It is the floor that lets you jump higher. Build a sanctuary for deep observation. It could be a chair by a window, a bench beneath a tree, a corner of a cafe, an odd hour. Make it consistent. The psyche learns places. It lays down associations between location and state. In your sanctuary, review your log of measurements, refine the next experiments, and let gratitude flood the channel, not as performance, but as the accurate emotion for a life where you are allowed to try again tomorrow. Gratitude closes the loop with warmth, and warmth keeps the instrument supple. You will notice, over weeks, a subtle shift in texture. The days stop feeling like beads you chase and begin to feel like a rope you braid. Threads of state, image, action, and feedback twist together into load-bearing lines. Setbacks tug, but don't snap them. Surprises become knots you learn to tie cleanly. This is what mastery looks like from the inside. Fewer theatrics, more continuity. Fewer declarations, more delivery. Keep this compact close. Observe with precision. Specify with kindness. Act sooner than you feel ready. And read outcomes like weather. Without shame, with attention, with a hand on the dial. The world does not refuse those who practice this. It reorganizes around them. The photon in the apparatus takes a defined path when measured. Your day in the field takes a defined form when you look with coherence. Look well. Move gently. Repeat until the outline becomes a doorway and you find yourself already walking through. Treat emotion as your carrier wave and meaning as your modulation. Raw emotion without meaning is loud static. Meaning without emotion is a dry signal no receiver bothers to decode. When you pair them, felt gratitude, embodied certainty, quiet eagerness, the wave travels farther with less decay. You know this from conversation. The same words from two speakers land differently because one carries coherence. Train yourself to generate that internal carrier on purpose. Slow inhale through the nose, long unforced exhale, shoulders melting, gaze soft yet steady, a single image held without strain. Now add a sentence that names a behavior in the present tense. The nervous system hears the music and recognizes the message. Attention is also a geometry problem. Scattered attention is a fog. Focused attention is a beam. Layered attention is a lattice on which outcomes crystallize. Build lattices. Stack consistent cues across time and context until probability condenses. The mug you only use when you write, the track you only play when you design, the doorway you always pause in for one slow breath. Each is a rib in the lattice. With enough ribs, the structure self-supports. Effort becomes guidance rather than drag. Memory is your silent accomplice. The brain stores not only facts, but procedures, state-action pairs that chain together under similar conditions. When you deliberately rehearse a future scene with full sensory fidelity, light, weight, sound, texture, then perform one matching microaction in the real world, you are splicing memory and possibility. Later in the wild, a single cue reactivates the chain and the body begins to move the way it was taught to move. This is how athletes see it, then be it how musicians hear the phrase, then the hands know, how creators feel the room, then speak the line that opens it. There is a discipline of gentle subtraction. Creation is not only the addition of doing, it is the removal of interference. Audit your loops for friction you simply tolerate. The app that steals your launch momentum, the chair that sabotages posture, the conversation that leaves a film over your focus. Replace, remove, or reframe. You are freeing bandwidth for signal. What remains begins to ring. Adopt the ethics of the craftsman who signs the back of the drawer. Most people polish the visible face. Masters finish the hidden joints. In your process, the hidden joints are handoffs. How you end a session, how you prepare the next step, how you store decisions so tomorrow's mind can trust yesterday's choices. Leave breadcrumb notes that future you can follow in under 30 seconds. Set file names that answer questions before they are asked. Put tools back in the same place. It looks trivial until you realize you're reducing prediction error inside your own skull. Confidence rises when your inner collaborator is reliable. Design your requests to the world the way you design prompts to a model. Specific, bounded, testable, and warm. A collaborator who loves X and ships by Y. An introduction to someone who solves Z. 3 honest critiques on this draft by Friday. When the ask is crisp and your state is generous. Doors open with less persuasion because you're offering resonance, not need. People are not obstacles, they are nodes. Coherent signals route through nodes faster. Let uncertainty be a studio, not a storm. Uncertainty is only lethal when you insist on high-resolution predictions far into a chaotic region. Scale down. Build short-horizon plans with high-frequency feedback. Think like a sailor hugging the coast. Sight the next headland. Set a bearing. Adjust with wind and tide. Resight. The sea does not punish this. It rewards it with safe, swift crossings. When you must make a difficult turn, ending a project, leaving a role, changing a routine, ritualize the transition so the nervous system can release and rebind. Name what was learned. Thank the form that carried you. Formally archive the artifacts and define the first 3 moves of the new arc ritual is not superstition. It is structured neurochemistry that tells the body the threat is organized. Organized threat becomes manageable challenge. Manageable challenge becomes engaging flow. Guard your metaphors as if they were tools, because they are. I'm drowning recruits a survival script. I'm climbing recruits a growth script. I'm tuning recruits patience and precision. Choose a metaphor that invites the behavior you want. If the work is delicate, be a watchmaker. If it's expansive, be a cartographer. If it's rhythmic, be a drummer counting the band in. Language drives posture, and posture drives outcomes. Find the cleanest version of courage. Go sooner at smaller scale. Courage does not require heroics when the unit is tiny and the loop is fast. Send the note before the story ferments. Try the opening line before the inner editor crowds the room. Ask the question before the moment cools. You're not gambling. You're increasing sample size. More samples beat bigger speeches. Close each day with a line in the ledger that a scientist and a poet would both respect. For the scientist, what signal did I measure? What did I change? What will I test tomorrow? For the poet, what moment of coherence did I feel? Where did gratitude gather? Who did I become a little more? This dual entry keeps the circuit human and exact. Then, lights low, attention soft, let the instrument rest. The night crew will file the measurements. Morning will come. You will look again. And because you look with care, the world will again harden where your gaze falls, like dew turning to crystal in the pattern of your intent. Precision deepens when you shorten the latency between insight and motion. Most people treat realizations like museum pieces, admired and left behind. Turn them into switches. When a clear thought arrives, pair it with one immediate body-level act before the idea cools. Write the first sentence, send the 2-line message, set the 20-minute timer, and begin. This insight-to-action coupling teaches your nervous system that awareness is a trigger, not a souvenir. Over days, the distance between seeing and shaping collapses, and your life starts to feel less like commentary and more like authorship. Master the physics of tiny tilts. Large efforts are dramatic but rare. Small biases repeated are invisible and unstoppable. A 2-degree shift in your morning routine. Breath before phone, water before caffeine, intent before inbox. Refracts the entire day's path like light through a prism. A 2-degree shift in speech, fewer problem nouns, more action verbs, changes how collaborators map you. Less analysis paralysis, more reliable momentum. Probability doesn't need a shove, it needs a nudge maintained. Install observer hygiene. Your attention is a sensor that gums up with residue. News outrage, stale comparisons, unclosed loops. Clean it daily. 5 minutes of horizon gaze to reset eye muscles and brainstem tone. 1 page from a book that stretches, not scorches. A quick pass to close or schedule any open tab that has lingered more than a day. Hygiene is not glamour. It is how instruments keep reading accurately. Clean sensor, clean data, clean data, clean creation. Build a social field that resonates with your vector. Humans co-regulate. States entrain across conversations faster than ideas do. Spend more time with people who treat intention as normal and follow through as baseline. Borrow their coherence until yours becomes self-sustaining. Lend yours when there's wobbles. Make explicit pacts. 1 brave ask each weekday. 2 hours of deep work before chat and report. It will feel like accountability, but it's really synchronized oscillation. Your rhythm's locking until the group emits a stronger carrier wave than any member alone. Practice anti-placebo. Refuse to ingest predictions that lower your agency. The world will offer forecasts wrapped as facts. This market is saturated. No one reads long essays. You can't break in without X. Some are true. Many are lazy priors. Test them in small, safe experiments. If your data contradict the prophecy, you've reclaimed sovereignty. If your data confirm it, you've purchased clarity cheaply and can redirect energy without resentment. Either way, belief returns to its rightful place. A hypothesis, not a handcuff. Treat your nervous system like a time machine. It can bring the future's chemistry into the present. Before key moves, Rehearse the afterglow you expect to feel once complete. Quiet relief, open chest, easy breath. Let your body taste it now, then step into the act. You are conditioning the act to be its own reward rather than a toll road to later permission. Over time, dread detaches from doing. Action starts to self-prime. Honor the conservation of willpower by outsourcing what machines and rituals can do better. Automate reminders, batch low-skill tasks, pre-program your week's anchors. Use checklists not because you forget, but because remembering costs glucose you need for judgment and presence. Systems that carry the routine free your artistry for the non-routine. The creator's pride isn't in juggling. It's in composing with empty hands and a quiet mind. Study decision half-life. A good decision decays in value the longer it waits, because conditions drift. When stakes are low and reversibility is high, decide fast and learn. When stakes are high and reversibility is low, slow down, but not by ruminating. Increase resolution. Gather one more critical datum. Consult one experienced node. Run one simulation. Then commit with your whole state so your team can entrain to a single frequency. Waffling emits phase noise. Commitment emits a clean tone others can align with. Use constraints as molds, not cages. Deadlines, budgets, word limits, single-take rules. These narrow the wave so it collapses into visible edges. Creativity thrives on boundary conditions because they reduce the combinatorial explosion to a playground. Name your boundary, then play hard inside it. You will discover that not enough often becomes exactly right when the observer stops fantasizing infinite options and starts sculpting in finite space. Become fluent in repair. Coherence doesn't mean never wobbling. It means fast stabilization with minimal overshoot. When you miss a promise, repair quickly and specifically. Acknowledge, explain without excuse, offer a make good with a new date you will hit. When you bruise a relationship, repair the signal path, validate impact, restate intent, agree on a check-in. Creators who repair well are trusted more than those who pretend they never err, because the network learns it can rely on bounce back, not perfection. Adopt a two-tier archive, living and deep. Living holds active loops, 3 projects, 3 relationships, 3 practices, kept within arm's reach and reviewed daily. Deep holds finished arcs and dormant dreams, labeled clearly for future retrieval. This separation keeps the observer from hallucinating obligations every time it scans memory. The present stays light. The past stays available but quiet. Anxiety falls when ghosts have rooms. Let beauty be part of your operating system. A clean table, a line of text that lands, a chord progression that clicks. These are not indulgences. They are micro-proof that order can emerge from effort. Beauty signature is worth doing again, which is exactly the message habits need to encode. When environments and artifacts please the senses, repetition turns from grind to ritual. Ritual sustains what motivation can only ignite. End sessions with a future pull. Leave the last paragraph mid-sentence. The melody unresolved, the canvas with one inviting gap. The brain hates broken patterns. It will itch to return. This is Zygarnik's quiet gift. Unfinished business as magnet rather than guilt. You are teaching tomorrow's observer exactly where to land and tomorrow's creator exactly where to push. Carry this through line as you move. Observation supplies precision, state supplies power, language supplies structure, Action supplies evidence, repair supplies trust, and beauty supplies desire. Rotate these like facets toward whatever you face. The lab and the studio are the same room. The instrument and the instrument maker are the same you. Keep looking with warmth and rigor. Keep moving a little sooner than is comfortable, and watch the field answer in kind. First as whispers at the edge of awareness, then as patterns in your calendar, and finally as a life that behaves like a well-tuned experiment whose results you are proud to publish by living them. Make precision a habit by standardizing your openings. Every doorway you pass through, front door, studio door, browser window, becomes a cue for a single, repeatable act that aligns you. One breath with a longer exhale, one sentence specifying the next unit of work, one glance at a pocket note listing today's 3 moves. Doorways convert drift into direction. Your life is a chain of thresholds. Turn them into switches and you will accumulate hours of coherence without forcing it. Treat friction as a friend with blunt feedback. If you consistently stall at the same moment, first paragraph, first call, first rep, don't shame yourself. Instrument the bottleneck. Reduce the cost of the first action until it is laughably small, then add scaffolding. A half-page template for openings, a script for the first 20 seconds of a call, a warm-up set you can complete in under a minute. Once momentum begins, the nervous system supplies its own chemistry. Dopamine follows progress, not pep talks. Your job is to light the fuse, not manufacture the explosion. Calibrate perception with deliberate contrasts. Spend 5 minutes in silence, then enter the crowded task, the signal pops. Work under a gentle time box, then release it and feel spaciousness sharpen accuracy. Alternate between detail and altitude. Zoom into one sentence until every word carries weight, then zoom out to check whether that sentence advances the arc. The alternation keeps the brain's control loops fresh. Stagnation often masquerades as fatigue. It is usually a stale loop crying for a change of scale. Practice clean exits. How you stop determines how easily you start again. End sessions by logging exactly where you are, naming the next step, and staging the environment so the next entry point is obvious. Close mental tabs by jotting down loose ends rather than carrying them in your head. The mind respects containers. Give it one, and it will let the system rest instead of ruminating. Rest is not the absence of work. It is the stage on which consolidation performs. Honor the physics of attention drift with gentle boundaries. Expect that your mind will wander. Build a corral rather than a cage. Keep a parking lot page open where intrusive ideas are captured in seconds. The act of capture satisfies the brain's need to be heard without surrendering the driver's seat. Return to the task with a single breath and one precise question. What is the next visible tile? 1,000 returns equal mastery more than 1,000 uninterrupted minutes do. Invite surprise on purpose. Curiosity de-stiffens the model you're using to read reality. Once a day, take a different route. Ask an unusual question. Swap the order of 2 routine steps. Micronovelty teaches flexibility at low risk, keeping your predictive machinery both accurate and adaptable. Creation accelerates when models bend easily without breaking. Keep one practice that is purely for elegance. Maybe it's scales on a piano, ink lines on paper, a tidy spreadsheet with formulas that sing. Elegance is the nervous system's proof that order and beauty can coincide. That proof spills into domains where beauty is less obvious: budgets, schedules, contracts, and softens your resistance. When the hand learns grace, the voice becomes clearer, and the day takes the shape of something you'd sign. Turn conflict into clarity by measuring what is actually at stake. Most arguments are mismatched maps. Different definitions, different time horizons, different values. Ask for the definition first, the horizon second, the value third. Translate in real time. When I say X, I mean definition A in a 1-week horizon in service of value M. What do you mean? The moment the maps align, heat drops and solutions appear. Observation here is cartography. Creation is road building once the terrain is shared. Let gratitude be granular. Instead of a vague glow, thank one specific behavior that moved the arc. The way you asked a clean question, the email you sent while your inner weather was gray, the boundary you set with kindness. Specificity anchors the state to actions your body can repeat. Over time, gratitude becomes an internal reinforcement schedule more reliable than external praise. Use loss correctly. When an outcome fails, extract the algorithm hiding in the ashes. Ask, what signal did I misread? What constraint did I ignore? What timing did I mishandle? Turn the answer into a guardrail or a checklist entry. Systems that grow stronger from stress are not mystical. They're simply systems that record error as instruction instead of identity. You are writing documentation for your future self, clear, brief, and humane. Refine your intake like you refine your outputs. Set quotas for creation to consumption. One output before any input. One page shipped for every 30 minutes scrolled. One conversation initiated for every article read. Consumption is easier than creation. Quotas reverse the gradient. The world doesn't need you to know more trivia. It needs your clean contribution placed where it can couple with others. Let your mornings carry your identity and your afternoons carry your collaborations. Early hours are quiet enough to print your intent on the day. Later hours are messy enough to test and refine that intent against reality. This sequence respects biology. Alertness and willpower are higher early, as well as sociology. Other people's vectors are strongest later. The observer writes the plan under calm conditions. The creator edits in the weather. Treat courage like a muscle with reps, sets, and progressive overload. One tiny, uncomfortable ask daily builds a tolerance for exposure. Track it. Celebrate the attempt rather than only the result. Soon the boundary between safe and brave shifts outward, and choices that once spiked adrenaline become simple items on a list. The world offers bigger doors to those who knock consistently on small ones. Design your metaphors for persistence. You're not pushing a boulder uphill. You're cutting a channel for water that will later flow by itself. You are not wrestling chaos. You're tuning an instrument so harmonics appear when strings are plucked. Metaphors instruct the nervous system in how to allocate effort. Choose those that imply compounding rather than draining. Remember that attention itself is a scarce ecological resource. Avoid clear-cutting your day with meetings and alerts. Let spaces of quiet regrow. In those clearings, deep observation becomes possible. The pattern beneath the tasks, the lever beneath the habit, the sentence beneath the paragraph. Then act from that perspective while it's still vivid. The world meets you at the level of fidelity you bring. Close with a simple cadence you can keep in any weather. Breathe until the noise drops. Name the next true move, make it small and do it now. Read the result with kindness, adjust the dial, thank the moment, and proceed. Every lap through that loop thickens the reality you intend. The observer in you keeps the lens clean. The creator in you keeps the hand steady. Between them, possibility keeps turning into pattern, and pattern into the life you can feel forming under your gaze. Raise the quality of your observation by tuning your interoception, the sense of your own interior. Most people try to shape the world while being strangers to the signals inside their skin. Map your body the way a navigator maps a coast. Notice where breath gathers when you plan, where tension pools when you hesitate, where warmth appears when a choice is right. These microsignals are low-latency data about prediction error. When you train yourself to feel them early, you edit course before drift becomes detour. The creator who reads the barometer inside does not wait for the storm outside to confirm it. Use stochastic resonance to your advantage. A small amount of purposeful noise can help a weak signal cross threshold. If you struggle to begin, pair the first minute of a task with a gentle backdrop, soft ambient sound, a metronome, a standing posture. The added input nudges sub-threshold readiness into action without overwhelming the channel. Once the signal stabilizes, reduce the noise. You're not chasing mood. You're engineering the conditions under which the tiniest willingness becomes motion. Think in terms of attractors, not outcomes. An outcome is a snapshot. An attractor is a basin toward which states naturally flow. Design attractors by shaping constraints. If your studio table is always clear the night before with one tool laid out, start becomes the easiest position to fall into. If your phone lives in another room until you ship one page, scroll becomes a high wall rather than the downhill slide. Creation is less about force than about gravity fields you set in advance. Let your practice borrow from the brain's own learning laws. Hebbian coupling, cells that fire together wire together, means you should bind the state you want to the behavior you want. Begin each deep work session with the same 3-move ritual: one breath, one sentence naming the next tile, one physical cue, finger tap, pin uncapped. Keep it identical long enough, and the ritual becomes a key that opens the door automatically. Add anti-Hebbian discipline as well. Uncouple distraction from reward by refusing to feed it novelty. When the impulse to switch arrives, tag it, breathe once and return. The impulse fades when it stops being paid. Bake Bayesian humility into your day. Hold your models lightly and your measurements dearly. Start the morning with a strong prior. This is who I am and what I will test, and let the day update you. If reality contradicts your plan, lower the precision of the plan, not your dignity. Adjust parameters. Do not collapse identity. The observer who updates without pride injury protects the creator's energy for making the next right move. Treat thresholds as sacred moments. Many changes are not linear. They are phase transitions. Ice looks stubbornly solid until one more calorie tips it to water. Your habits behave the same way. Consistent subthreshold inputs accumulate silently. Then the system flips from effortful to automatic. Don't quit 1 degree before melt. Identify the variable that is closest to its tipping point. Sleep regularity, caffeine timing, the first 5 minutes of a session, and apply patient pressure there. Use the world affordances like a climber uses holds. Every environment advertises actions. A whiteboard invites sketching. A sunlit corner invites reading. A tidy kitchen invites cooking. Rearrange your spaces so the actions that feed your future are the ones easiest to grasp. Hide the friction by making the desired move the path of least resistance. When the environment whispers the right verb, willpower gets to rest. Rewrite memory on purpose with reconsolidation. When an old script triggers stage fright, failure loop, enter the state without fleeing. Then overlay a new ending while the memory trace is labeled. Breathe until the peak softens. Then perform one small competent act inside the same context. Speak one sentence into the room. Press send on a tidy note. Play one clean bar. The nervous system stores the updated pattern. Next time, the old fear arrives with a new exit. Schedule your exploration like a scientist and your exploitation like an artisan. Dedicate tight windows to trying odd tactics, weird prompts, new sources, knowing most will fail, but a few will raise your ceiling. Then lock into the tactic that worked and repeat with elegance until it sings. Alternating these modes keeps your frontier alive while your core gets stronger. You become both discoverer and builder, and probability admires this balance. Honor the replay systems that refine skill while you sleep. The hippocampus replays novel sequences. The cortex integrates. Give them clean material. A short evening review of what you practiced, the top lesson written in one line, the next step staged in the physical world. Put the pen where your hand will land, the file open to the exact spot, the shoes where your foot will search. Morning will feel less like negotiation and more like follow-through. Think of integrity as latency control in networks. When you keep your word, others reduce buffering around you. They answer faster, hand you more responsibility, share earlier data. Low-latency networks create emergent power. Projects move with less jitter. Opportunities arrive before they expire. Integrity compounds not because of virtue signaling, but because it shortens feedback loops until collaboration feels like flow. Let beauty be your entropy countermeasure. Entropy frays attention, beauty knits it. A clean typeface in a document, aligned margins, an instrument tuned before practice. These are not mere aesthetics. They reduce micro-irritations that drain cognitive budget and increase the pleasure that makes repetition sustainable. When the eye smiles, the hand stays. Carry a pocket sextant for orientation. 3 questions you can ask anywhere to recover your vector. What matters here? What is the smallest verifiable move? What information will that move bring back? These align value, action, and learning into one line. You can step on even in heavy weather. Step, read, adjust. Ships cross oceans this way. So do careers, relationships, and art. When everything feels loud, find the lighthouse of a single benevolent constraint. 1 hour offline, 1 page no matter what, 1 outreach before noon. The constraint slices through noise like a beam. Reality organizes around it because you do. The observer holds the light steady. The creator navigates by it, tacking as needed but never losing the line. And keep the gentle arithmetic of mastery close. 1 breath to lower noise, 1 sentence to set intent, 1 move to make it real, 1 note to learn from it, 1 thanks to seal the loop. Run this sequence more times than your doubt can count. Patterns will appear where there used to be fog. Doors will appear where there used to be walls. Not because the world changed its laws, but because the observer and the creator in you finally began to work as one instrument, tuned, attentive, and quietly unstoppable.